This conference will now be recorded.
Oh, there it is. Okay. I'm going to call the meeting to order, and this is a regular meeting of the Allendale Land Use Board, at which formal action will be taken on the items listed on the agenda and upon any other matters which may properly come before the Land Use Board. Requirements of the Open Public Meeting Act have been satisfied through postings on the public bulletin board in the municipal building, the borough website, and by publication in the Record on December 21, 2020, with copies being sent to the Ridgewood News and Star Ledger. Certain agenda items be open to the public for comment or testimony, and the board will advise the public when such matters are open for comment or testimony. Okay, I'll ask those who are in attendance with us today to stand. We'll do a pledge to the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay.
Chairman, just let the rest of the board know I won't take it personal. It's okay. I'll sign myself.
Ron's Island.
Okay, can we have a roll call for attendance, please?
Board Member Bergen is absent. Secretary Delavatio.
Here.
Board Member Davis.
Here.
Board Member Kistner.
Here.
Board Member Lovasolo.
Here.
Councilman Sasso is absent. Vice Chairman Sirico.
Here.
Mayor Bernstein is absent. Chairman Quinn.
Here.
Alternate Yakarino.
Here.
Alternate Ford.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the June 16th Land Use Board regular meeting. They were circulated, made a few edits. They got recirculated. Anybody else have any changes to those minutes? Okay, would anybody like to make a motion to accept the minute?
So moved, Yakarino.
Second, Kistner.
We have a second, any discussion? If not, we'll vote on the minutes.
Board Member Davis.
Yes.
Board Member Kistner.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Sirico.
Yes.
Chairman Quinn.
Yes.
Alternate Yakarino.
Yes.
Alternate Ford.
Yes.
Okay, the minutes carry. Okay, now to the public hearings for this evening, which there are 3. First one is a continuation of Land Use Board 2021-03 Park and Ivy Properties LLC, 54 Park Avenue, Allendale, New Jersey, lot 79, lot 7. And that's carried from the meeting of June 16, 2020.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to recuse myself. I was not here last month and I was unable to listen to the board minutes.
So, everyone else is good to go. Okay.
So the 2 alternates will be participating and voting.
Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Bruce Whitaker from the firm McDonald Whitaker, representing the applicant, Park and Ivy Properties. Purpose of this evening is to complete the application by providing you with a summation. At first, we just want to move into evidence all of the exhibits that you had on a previous exhibit list. So that's just made part of the record.
Yes, they will be accepted as evidence as part of the record.
Thank you. First and foremost, I would like to thank the board members for all of your hard work and all of the reviews that have occurred as this application has progressed, as well as to thank the board professionals for the amount of time they spent in connection with the revisions we've made to this application for the development of the property. Our client started with a plan that was not well received, and our client over many months has developed a plan which I believe is not only compatible with the surrounding area, but meets the criteria under the municipal land use law for the variance relief that we are seeking. It is an application that was interrupted by the pandemic. It was an application that has been substantially reduced over the course of the presentation as it pertains to the number of units proposed, the number now being 5. It's one that has been revised to meet all of the suggestions and the modifications that you proposed during the course of the public hearings. It's one that's going to provide one affordable unit, which will meet, and we stipulate, all of the criteria under the Affordable Housing Act and under the requirements of your settlement with Fair Share Housing. Let's look at this property, which is shown as Block 1709, Lot 7, with an area of approximately 18,129 square feet. There are 2 existing single-story buildings on the property with a parking lot and associated other improvements. It is and continues to be an auto repair shop. The property I would submit to you is a classic example of a non-conforming use. You are all cognizant of the fact that under the municipal land use law, when a non-conforming use can be eliminated or reduced, that from a planning perspective, that has a positive impact on any municipality. Non-conforming uses are expressly disfavored under the municipal land use law. It is a property here that lacks any drainage improvements. It's a property with 1 building having a non-conforming rear yard of 4 feet, where 24 feet is required, recognizing that rear yard is abutting residential. It is contrary to what some members of the public have suggested during the course of the hearing. Because it hasn't been used for a while, therefore it would not be used again as a repair shop, and that's incorrect. The law is very clear. I would recite the Saddle River Bobinski case, a simple case in which a horse farm had a stable that wasn't used for 27 years and was reactivated, and the town attempted to say that the non-conforming use was, quote, abandoned. It's the premier case in abandonment, and it states very clearly that there's no abandonment unless there's an overt act. There's been no overt act here. So I just submit to you, not as a threat, but just as a comment, that the concept that the repair shop is gone is far from the truth and far from what's substantiated under the law. This property can be used again, as I said, for a repair shop. Cars can be parked in the parking lot. There can be noise that emanates from the typical auto repair shop. There's large repair doors, as you know, that are open that face the street directly across from Orchard Park. That can be opened again for that purpose. This all gets eliminated by what we are proposing to do. It can be a very active use, does not have to be a passive use. I would suggest it's not a use that should be in your C1 commercial district. And in fact, it's not permitted in the C1 commercial district. It's only there because it's non-conforming. I submit to you that the better use is the 5 townhouse proposal that we have before you this evening. It will not be out of character with the other townhouses that are in close proximity to the property. It does not overburden the lot. And when you balance the ability to reduce what I would consider a very noxious nonconformity to something that is residential and more compatible with the surrounding area, that it provides, from a positive aspect, good planning. When you look at the renderings of the building, and you saw them during Zoom, and you see what is being proposed there, I would suggest to you that from an aesthetic and architectural standpoint, this is much better and is comparable and compatible with what's in the neighborhood. Now, townhouses are not permitted in this zone, so the applicant seeks a D1 variance. The variance is for a residential use, and I would submit it's much better than what's there now. Knowing where this property is located, it's not really a location that is good, I would think, for retail use. I think it really basically serves as a transition area between retail and residential. It's really not an integral part of the business zone. It's somewhat, as I think we admitted during the course of the hearing, someone made the comment, it's a little bit, quote, off the beaten path. But for the moment, if you can imagine some of the uses that could be permitted in a C1 zone on this particular property, the C1 ordinance has a number of uses, and some of them I think would be more inappropriate than what we are proposing. One of the uses is a restaurant. Another use would be a tavern. I believe those type of uses would not be something you'd want to see that close to residential. Yes, there's some uses that are less intense. Offices could be put there. but we all recognize that offices have become somewhat of a white elephant, that there's not really much need for offices these days, basically upon what has occurred the last few years. And I would think that also the retail aspect is not truly viable on a site like this. The concept of having residential, I submit, near public transportation has become very prevalent, and that's what this affords. We only need to look at Walwick, Ridgewood, Ramsey as examples of where they have put residential near their train stations. And it meets one of the concepts under the state criteria of creating housing near public transportation. So I want to look at this first from the standpoint of the site plan aspect. And I want to look at it in connection with your ordinance in the C1 zone. You require a front yard setback of 42 feet. The applicant's proposing 43. There are no side yard setbacks required in this zone. An applicant can build a building very close to the property lines, but this applicant is proposing 16 feet and 55 feet as side yards. Your rear yard setback is 24 feet. As you know, there's 4 feet there now. The applicant is proposing 25 feet, more than what the minimum is that's required. Your ordinance has no percentage of building coverage on this particular piece of property, but the applicant is proposing what I would submit as a very modest building coverage of 25.5%. Your ordinance for the C1 does not require an impervious coverage requirement. So the entire lot could be in impervious coverage without landscaping in the C1. It is downtown. But here the applicant is proposing 62%. And right now on that site, there's 78.5%. So there's a reduction in impervious. And it's a reduction in impervious for a very good purpose. It's called landscaping. The building height is 2 stories and 28 feet that's permitted. Yes, the applicant is proposing the 3 stories, and you've heard the testimony as to the necessity for that, and you've heard the planning testimony also. We're proposing a building height where in one particular instance it's 35 feet, but you've heard the testimony of the architect and the engineer that when you're basically looking at this building, it does not have the height of the 35 feet across the whole building to you. It is 3 stories, but let's remember what the first story really does serve. It serves as a garage, and garage spaces from a planning perspective is much better than having a sea of parking. And I would submit to you, when you look at your ordinances in Allendale, garages are encouraged. So a garage in a townhome does a number of things. It houses an automobile. It also keeps those things that people otherwise have no place to put from being outdoors. Overall, it serves a good purpose. And here, I think when you balance this quote 3-story with what the purpose of that first floor is, that it's appropriate to grant that height requirement. Your parking for this type of a use is 12. You had concerns about where do the visitors park. The 12 meets the RSIS standards, which is the state standard that you're guided by, but the applicant's proposing 16. So he's proposing more than what is legally required. Yes, we have a parking stall requirement that's 10 by 20 under your ordinance. We recognize, and I've seen this with other applications I've been before you with in Allendale, the 9 by 18 has become a pretty much standard all around, and is a standard that's been used in other commercial aspects in Allendale, and that's what we are proposing. Always been a concern in Allendale about the aisle width in parking. Fire subcode officials always want to see a 25-foot aisle. The applicant is proposing, and on the plan, a 25-foot aisle, so it is conforming. Now, you've seen a rendering of the building, and I would suggest to you that if you were driving down Park Avenue and you looked at the front facade of that building, it's a good suggestion that came from the board, since we have a building that basically faces this parking area and created that front facade to the building, that it gives a very good look in the downtown area and would be an improvement to what's there now. The townhouses I submit to you have a very upscale architectural and aesthetic element to them. Look at the landscaping that's been provided and the upgrades that have been done, and look at what's there now. Compare what's there now and compare to what it is that we are proposing. There's a retaining wall that's crumbling and in a state of disrepair. Neighbors commented about that. The applicant is proposing to replace it. There is, as I've stated earlier, a very large increase in landscaping. The landscaping that was requested by the neighbors will be installed. look at the drainage system that's now being proposed. It's a drainage system not to improve a drainage system. It's a drainage system to put a drainage system on a site that has no drainage system. If you recall the testimony of our engineer, which basically was reviewing Michael Vreeland's reports, and I believe Mr. Vreeland concurred that the requests he made have been accommodated on the revised plans, and the requests that are still needed can all be submitted by tweaking the plan. There is nothing there out of the ordinary that we cannot address. The drainage system that's provided, new lawn inlets to ensure no runoff, manhole and catch basins to be added to Park Avenue to provide pipe connections, new catch basins. The drainage is being controlled on the site. It's not just an improvement what is there, it's a system that is being put in for the first time. And that, from a planning aspect, is a very positive. You heard the testimony of our engineer. He's addressed basically those issues that were in the reports. He's incorporated them in the most recent plan that's an exhibit dated with a revision date of June the 1st. Now let's look at the planning aspect. You've heard extensive testimony from Richard Price, our planner, a municipal planner in many towns, a planner that has done these type of developments before, a planner that incidentally was on our team at the beginning and made many of the different recommendations as we morphed through the application. And he provided you with the justifications of the municipal land use law. When you heard his testimony, I recall in the last meeting that the question was asked, I think it was by the chairman, to Mr. Snedekus, if Mr. Price provided to Mr. Snedekus sufficient information during the testimony to meet the test for a use variance. And Mr. Snedekus, I remember and recall his statement back, because I like baseball, and when I heard it right away, and he says he touched all bases. And I would concur with that I believe that the testimony you've heard from Richard Price was sufficient to show that the use variance we're requesting, as well as the C1 variances, were substantiated and based upon the testimony he's provided. And how did he do that? Well, it was done under the litmus test in the Medici case and in the Price-Hamilli case. He established that the property is particularly well suited. In fact, that it's not permitted in the zone because he listed the positive criteria, and here they are. He said that we are eliminating the gregarious type of use of the non-conforming auto repair shop. Very important, very positive from plan. He said that there's residential developments that surround this property, so it can constitute what you would call a transition zone. It's not something out of the ordinary. There's two different residential zones there now, one being a multifamily. He stated the location to the train station and the compatibility of owner occupancy units is something that has been recommended under the new state guidelines for planning. He stated that eliminating an unattractive and substandard buildings, upgrading the site architecturally is a positive. Eliminating a 4-foot setback where 25 feet is required is a positive. He said creating a far more compatible and consistent use can be accommodated on the site. He stated that it fits within the mixed use of single family, two family, and multifamily residential, and is also compatible with a local firehouse and obviously the train station. He stated sum and substance that all in all, it's much more compatible than an automobile service station that's not permitted in the zone. And he recited that the 2001 state plan and state smart growth policy is being followed when you offer this type of housing near public transportation. He stated that the height is not an aberration, that there is actually a 4-story structure nearby. Yes, it's down further in grade, but he also stated that there are 59 apartments in that facility. We're looking at basically 5. Our ratio is less than the ratio at the other site. And I did hear during the course of the hearings that, oh yeah, well, that was a court mandated requirement. But that's not what you look at as a planner. You look at what is in the field now. what's in the neighborhood now and see if this is compatible, whether it was court mandated or not, with what surrounds it. And I submit it is. It is, as I stated earlier, something that works as what's known by planners as a transition zone. I don't think anyone could debate that the streetscape along Park Avenue would be significantly upgraded and improved. Mr. Price illustrated for the purposes under NJSA 40:55D-2, the purposes of the municipal land use law, that there were a number of purposes served. You only have to prove one. He proved and showed 4. He then went and looked at the 2011, 2017 reexamination reports and that for the master plan. And it states that it's a goal of this municipality to promote a range of housing types and to maintain and enhance the viability of the central business district. I submit to you that this proposal is much more viable than the auto repair shop that's there now. It states to minimize environmental impact resulting from development. Here we have an impervious surface that's being reduced. Here we have a use that's not proposed. Here we have a noxious use that has the ability to provide environmental concerns. Any auto repair shop does. And that juxtaposed against 5 residential units. I would submit to you that the basis of what Mr. Price provided to you in testimony as the expert planner, not refuted by anyone. I believe that Mr. Snedeker was right when he stated that it basically touched all bases. Now, let's remember there were some further suggestions made by the board at the last meeting, and all of them can be stipulated as conditions of approval if you were to grant this approval tonight. We are extending the retaining wall as requested by the neighbors and as suggested by you. We are preserving that maple tree that was requested. And we stated that we would install a fence of any height. And we said we would install it as a color that you would propose also, and a type of quality that you want, whether it be wood or whether it be PVC. And the height would be whatever you recommend. And we stated as an alternative, if you didn't want to see a fence and no fence at all, we would do that either. That would be up to whatever stipulation you wanted to impose upon us. Sum and substance, I believe the 5 units are appropriate. As I stated at the last meeting, the site remains as a repair shop now. And as I stated, and let's be clear, I'm not saying it as a threat, it's the reality. I think this is a very realistic opportunity for the borough to upgrade a piece of property in its downtown that it can be proud of. As we stated, it will look like the others. It will meet the criteria under the affordable housing criteria as it pertains to that affordable unit. Effectively, if you were to say that there's too many units there and you want 4, it's honestly a de facto proposal of eliminating the affordable housing unit, which is contrary to the planning concepts in New Jersey and contrary to an obligation every municipality has to be able to provide affordable housing. I submit to you there's been no contradictory planning testimony that could serve as a basis or foundation of a denial. I submit to you that the applicant has addressed the concerns you raised. They've modified the building by reducing it, by relocating it, by basically taking all the suggestions made during the course of the public hearings. I submit to you that the variances being requested have been substantiated by our experts on the municipal land use law, meets the criteria of case law. I submit to you that you have a unique opportunity to take this unique piece of property, make it Park and Ivy. I think that will be a viable development in your downtown of Allendale. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Council. Chris, can you summarize procedurally what the steps are or what the next steps are or where we are?
Okay. Well, the next steps are the application has been closed to the public, obviously by now, and Mr. Whitaker has summed up. The board has the opportunity now to have any comments about the testimony and the application that's in full. And then the opportunity would be to vote on the matters that are before us, including the use variance and the site plan, since they're requesting both the preliminary site plan approval, final site plan approval, and the use and bulk variances. So they could be voted upon, or they should be voted upon now, since the matter is concluded.
Okay.
Obviously, certainly the board can have any comments before voting.
Within the board.
Yes, it's not open to the public.
Right, that's, I wanted to clarify that.
Obviously, the public can listen, but
Right.
no testimony or anything else is further allowed.
Okay. Thank you. So those listening, those in the audience, understand that there is no further public comment on this matter. So with that, we just have board comment internally, which we will do. What are the variances? I just want to make sure I understand them all. I know the D1 is a use variance from a commercial use to a residential use.
Well, we have the D variance for the use. We have the D6 variance for the height. We have the C variance, which I believe was originally for the
Fence.
6-foot fence. And other C variances.
Where's parking stall?
Parking stall
Oh, for the-
size.
5 by 18.
Okay. 9 by 8, yeah. Right. In the height variance, the D6 is because the zone,
28.
It's the beyond a certain percentage over the zone requirement, over the 10%. So therefore, a D6 variance is required.
and that's because it's viewed against the commercial height, not commercial zone height, not the residential zone height, or not?
It's in the zone height that we're in.
Right,
The
so
C1
that's the
does.
commercial, right?
Correct.
And we're in a residential zone, it would be 2.5 stories and 35 feet,
That is
which is
correct.
kind of the standard in Allendale.
Right.
I just want to make sure I understood what the variance really requested is. And for any other member of the board as well. So, 18. Okay. Okay. I mean, my comment would be from just my personal view that I think it's a good transition from commercial to residential in that area. There is no commercial anymore. There was many years ago. That neighborhood has changed, that street has changed. So to me, residential makes more sense than a commercial building. So that's just the way it strikes me. Anybody else
Chairman, I
want to have
echo your-
comments or pipe in?
Nope, my
Tell me
apologies
what you
for
think.
talking over you. No, I agree with you. I think that it's I think transition is probably a good word to use from, I would say, completing the transition from what was once a commercial zone or more shops and retail to residential. And I would agree. I think I made some comments last time that compared to the existing condition of the property, this would most certainly be an improvement in terms of aesthetics and drainage and things to that nature.
Chairman, I'd just like to say, I think it was really a good work in progress among the residents, board and the applicant. The residents brought some of their concerns that were legitimate. The applicant was very forthcoming in addressing those numerous issues in regards to landscaping, fencing, even in stipulation, conditions of the stipulation, if we do approve the size of the fence, the wall, a lot of the issues that were brought up, the applicant did a great job, I believe, in addressing them. And the board brought up concerns. And again, this has been a long process, and the applicant has gone back to the drawing board several times. And as the last set of plans show, it seemed like all concerns were addressed.
Yeah, I agree. There were a number of iterations. to this project as time went on and as comments went on and there were adjustments made. Other board members? Those,
So Kevin, I was not at the June meeting, but I was able to listen to the full tape, which was interesting of the last meeting. I do appreciate everything that the applicant has put into this, the drainage, the buffering. I absolutely agree that a residential use for this property, especially where it is situated in that kind of B zone, is much preferred to what we have there now. I take a little bit of issue with the fact that it was noted many times that there was an unattractive car service on this lot. I don't know, part of the charm of Allendale was sort of this little car service that we had there forever, that people loved, the neighborhood loved. It was this charming little part of Allendale, and this leftover C1 zone from when downtown Allendale used to be on that part of the tracks. It doesn't make sense for it to be C1 anymore. I totally get that. At the same time, one of the arguments that Mr. Price made is that, well, while this residential building is now 32 feet, I believe 32.8 now, and we appreciate the height coming down on that, that was saying that it was better compared to the residential neighborhood around it. Well, the residential neighborhood around it are single family and 2-family homes. That's not what is being proposed here. And while I understand that you have the ML zone across the street from it, that is, once again, across the street along the railroad tracks in a different area. You get back to talking about 4 units. I know some of the neighbors brought up the fact that this would have been a great little opportunity maybe to have two-family homes on this property. I'm not convinced that these townhouses mesh with that section of Allendale.
thank you. Other board members? Those on the go-to meeting site? Wish to be heard? Okay. Not hearing any.
Chairman, I don't think our planner is here, but our borough engineer is here.
Actually, our planner is on.
Oh, he is on, I just want
Yeah,
to
Ed
make sure
is
both
on.
our professionals are satisfied with it.
I'll give our professionals an opportunity to chime in. Mike, you want to start since you're
Sure.
right here?
Like Mr. Whitaker indicated, the applicant's engineer has gone back and made revisions to the plans substantially addressing our comments. I think there will be another iteration of the plans that fully address our comments should this be approved. And there'll be some future work to be done, doing test holes for proposed dry wells and things like that. But I believe everything can be addressed to our satisfaction based on the work that's been done so far.
Okay, and those are sort of the typical site plan adjustments that we,
From an engineering standpoint.
right, yeah,
Yes.
agreed, okay.
And any resolution would have a caveat that subject to field adjustments based upon the engineer's input.
Okay. Ed, you have comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just regarding the site plan and the considerations of the board and their deliberations, is that at the last meeting, we discussed possibly shifting some of the alignment of the building the way it jogs in order to allow some increased buffering to the rear or to the, I guess that's the northern side of the property. And I'm not sure the applicant is stipulated to that.
I can say we have stipulated to it, and a sketch of that has been provided to the board.
Yes,
Okay.
that was stipulated too, and I know it came by email the day or so after the meeting. And there are sketches that Mr. Whitaker has provided, moving the, adjusting, I guess, it forward a little
We
bit.
adjusted the buildings forward, we reduced that patio, and we ran that buffer that you wanted all the way down that side.
Okay, so that will be a revision to the plan if in fact the board approves the application.
That is correct.
In addition to that, I believe they stipulated to some of the recommendations we had regarding landscaping in and around the building. So I wanted to offer that for the board's consideration as well. I believe that was the remainder of the items that I had to be addressed from the applicant.
Okay. And it seems that those items have been stipulated to by the applicant. Thanks, Ed.
I guess one question I have is, should this be approved, I assume there would be a subsequent developers agreement entered
Absolutely.
into
So-
the municipality just for clarification.
Yes.
Okay, no other comments from the board?
I just have one other question that it was brought up a bunch of times that there used to be, although this was auto repair, there was, I believe in the past, some sort of gas station or some sort of oil concern on this property in the way back. So that is part of what would be required also, right? That's by the town.
Yeah, one of the things that they're gonna have to do would be the normal permeability tests for the dry wells. But one of the questions that I had asked of the applicant's engineer in that process is to confirm that if dry wells go in, they're not gonna create or exacerbate an unknown environmental situation. So they would have to do some investigation to address that.
I'm advised that before the applicant purchased the property, phase one was done, and then they did an environmental review. I did not handle the transaction, but that had all been done before the acquisition occurred. We can share that information with Mike.
Thank you.
Do we need that as part of evidence into this, Mr. Bond?
The phase one?
Yeah.
No,
No, okay.
no. It's really at the applicant's peril. If
Okay.
he bought it without doing an environmental, that
Right.
would be his concern. I don't think anyone would advise him that way to do it, so I'm sure he did it. And if there was anything that was discovered, it would still be his responsibility now.
Exactly.
Okay. We move to a vote procedurally. Would you just state what that means and how many who are eligible?
Right. So we have 7 eligible to vote today. In order to pass, we have 5 need to be affirmative. So we have eligible to vote Davis, Kistner, Lovasolo, Srico, Quinn, Yacarino, and Forbes.
Thank you.
So that's who we know who is eligible to vote. As we said, Joe didn't have a chance to see the last meeting, so he's not eligible to vote on this meeting.
And Suzanne, you signed the affidavit?
I did.
Okay, thank you.
So procedurally, if a member wanted to make a motion to approve, that could be done and seconded, and then a vote could be taken for the application. And the motion would be to approve the preliminary and final site plan and the use and bulk variances requested, along with the stipulations that have been made throughout the course of the application in consultation with the engineer, and stipulations which would also be included in the resolution, which would say that, the applicant would be willing to work with field adjustments at the direction of the borough planner and borough engineer.
Right. Thank you. Okay. Would anybody like to make the motion as we move along?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion, to keep the process moving as our board attorney has.
So stated.
Keep it simple, yes.
Well done, Ron.
Thank you.
Yeah, you didn't have to repeat it all.
I wouldn't be able to.
Yeah. Do we have a second on the motion?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, Tyler, thank you. Okay, any discussion on the motion as raised? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move to a vote, please. I think,
Board Member Davis?
Just thinking.
This is tough. I'm gonna say no.
Board Member Kistner?
Yes.
Board Member Lovasolo?
No.
Vice Chairman Sirico?
No.
Chairman Quinn?
Yes, for me.
Alternate Yakarino?
Yes.
Alternate Forbes?
No.
Okay, you do the tally.
Okay, so the motion does not pass. So there's no, so. Would there be a motion? This doesn't pass. So use variance does not pass because 5 affirmative votes are
We're not,
needed for that.
right. And what was the total? For the record.
3 to 3. 3 affirmative or negative.
Okay. Yeah, I knew there were 7. Okay, so that
Can we
concludes, so that concludes this matter.
Conclude this matter.
Okay. Sure.
All right.
Yeah.
On my transfer, instead of contact. We'll have my stenographer for what happened.
Yeah, that's the recording. Okay.
Okay, there are 2 other matters on the agenda for this evening. Application file, Land Use Board 2021-07, Christopher and Mary Ann Maroney, 32 Stone Fence Road, Allendale, New Jersey, block 1406-7. This is a 1-story rear addition portico and interior renovations. And there's some variance for the requested with that application. So is the applicant here? I believe I see Mr. Maroney, a former neighbor of mine. Why don't you come up? And you can sit here, and whoever's going to testify, I don't know if you have planners or architects or just
us.
the homeowners, that's fine. Okay. What is this? Okay. I believe I can hear this. Chris grew up across the street from me. But he's no longer living on that street, Allen Street anymore.
You're not within his 200-foot zone. You don't have an economic interest in the property, so.
I do not. So I just want to make sure of that.
Excuse me, can you pull the speaker up so that we can hear you when you speak?
It's not the,
It's, there's a suction cup underneath
Oh,
it, so you can just pull it up. Thank you.
Is that good?
Okay. I'll ask our attorney, is all the paperwork in order for this?
Yes.
Notifications?
Okay, this is the application of C. Maroney, 32 Stone Fence Road for a variance, block 1406, lot 7. I've had an opportunity to review the affidavits submitted along with the paid tax bill and with regard to the notices that were published in the newspaper, and they are adequate, and the application is deemed complete, and the applicant is available to proceed at this time.
Okay.
So who will be testifying? All right. Christopher Maroney, can you raise your right hand? Repeat after me. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth throughout the course of this application. Excuse, you have to. Just,
Yes,
you swear to
yes,
tell the
I
truth?
do.
Thank you very much. You're sworn.
Okay. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're trying to do at your home and why you're here to see us?
Okay, sure. First off, thank you for
taking the time to see us. We recently moved into, or back into Allendale, right when the pandemic hit. So as part of that, we're looking to do a little bit of renovations to the house that we purchased. That includes a small bump out in the rear of the house to extend the kitchen, as well as a front portico, and also enclosing in an existing screened-in porch structure on the house.
Okay. And where is it that you run into variance issues?
So the variance issue comes with the existing screened-in porch. It is over the setback line, and by adding some additional square footage to the house, it increases that the amount of overage of that setback line.
So you currently, if I read this right, and this is based on a report from the engineer, you're 2.8 feet non-conforming, but when you do some of the work into the rear of the property, which does not require a variance, correct?
Correct.
That would expand the side setbacks to 30 feet.
That's correct.
And so you would then be in violation of 4.5 feet, let's say, round numbers. And that is just simply because, are you doing work on that site?
Yes, so we're retaining the existing footprint of the structure, and we're just going to close it in.
The entire structure?
Correct.
So it's a screened-in, closed-in
It's a
porch?
screened-in porch currently. We're going to close it in to be a finished space to use as a home office.
Okay, so you're really closing it. It's not going to be a porch anymore.
Correct.
It's essentially going to be a room.
Yes.
You've adding a room in, and that's what, okay. But it's still in the same footprint that's existing today.
That is correct.
So essentially a more solid look to it than a porch.
Right.
The fair set.
It'll reduce the visibility to the neighbor and also prevent any additional noise, given that it'll be a closed-in.
And you have some architectural plans to,
We've submitted the plans. We didn't bring anything additional.
I don't know if the board wants to review or look at the plans that were submitted. They're in the package. Nice detailing of what the elevations look like. Essentially, what are you adding, a kitchen to the rear?
That's correct.
Or
Yeah,
bumping
we're
out the
bumping out the
kitchen
kitchen to add more space.
Right. But other than that, just what you have the room to do in the rear, right? You're not looking for anything into the rear, it's really to the side, closing in.
Right, it's just that side
And
setback.
we have another case, which we've had many of them before us, where an expansion of square footage basically expands your side setbacks.
Right.
And that's done deliberately in our ordinance to prevent overbuilding on properties and creating issues with the neighbors, essentially. So in this case, you're basically just closing in the existing structure, but because of the building to the rear, adding on a little more square footage, your side setbacks get expanded out a bit more.
That's correct, right.
And that's done by zone. And you're in the
Mr.
double.
Chair, you're exactly right. That's the case.
Right. So it's another case where we've seen several in front of us with
There was
variances.
some renovations on the porch, so the renovations are being done. Structure that's non-conforming. Then the additional building area is being added to the rear, enhancing the side yard setback. Creating the additional.
Right. And you have some comments on that, Mike. You want to expand upon them?
Yeah,
As long as you have the
couple
floor.
questions. These are questions that typically come up in these types of applications, with regard to exterior finishes and colors. I assume that the addition is going to be finished similar to the rest of the house.
Yes, that's correct.
With the type of materials and colors that-
Right, we'll have a consistent siding for the addition with the.
And, particularly on the side porch that's going to be where the screen porch that's going to be enclosed, you're not proposing any exterior lighting on that?
No.
No spotlights or floodlights that with great issues.
Correct, there'll be no exterior lighting.
And then I guess the last comment is, there is a minimal, change in the coverage, so we would ask the applicant to consider as part of the renovations, redirecting some of the roof runoff, so it doesn't inadvertently end up towards the street or other development neighborhoods.
And you're willing to do that?
Yes, that's perfectly acceptable.
Then item 4 in our review memo basically outlines additional steps other should the board approve this application.
Okay. Thank you. I didn't say anything from Ed, but I wouldn't expect anything from Ed on this one. It's pretty straightforward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any comments.
Okay, thanks, Ed. Other board members want to direct questions?
I got a question. Did you guys do any thoughts about maybe putting that little office space in the back, kind of next to where you put in your portico coming off? Looks like you have like a pantry and a bathroom. Could probably make an entranceway right through the pantry and have that space right in the back so you wouldn't need a variance.
Yeah, we didn't consider that. We thought that the existing structure was a good opportunity to make that a finished space.
So what's there now is just a basic slab on grade, or does it have footings and everything to go down?
It's a slab, yeah.
All right, you're gonna have to remove that slab to put in a foundation?
I'm not sure what the plans call for that.
All right. Do you know approximately how close your neighbor's house is to your property line?
They have a good about 30 feet to a deck off the back of their property.
Have you talked to your neighbor? Do they have any kind of comments or
Yeah,
objections?
we're friendly with the neighbors, so we actually talked to them before the hearing, and they didn't raise any concern.
Okay.
We'll open to the public, so if they're here, they can voice those concerns.
Unfortunately, because of the multiplier, even if you were to cut a couple of feet off that on the side, it probably still wouldn't matter, I would
Right.
think. I just, sometimes like when the board gets applicants like yourself, we always like to see, was there a plan B? Did you look at every option?
Right.
In the process, like I'll give you an example. My property is an unusual size, so I had to get a variance. And, I had to look at every possibility. I had no other options. I had to put it where I had to put it. That's why I needed a variance. In your case, I think you probably could have put the room in the back. It probably wouldn't be ideal, but, I understand why you're putting it here. I just, I always like to hear from the applicant that you're thinking about the neighborhood. You're thinking about, okay, if I can avoid going through the process and going through the variances and, impacting the town and the neighbors, that's what we like to see. So I appreciate your honesty. I mean, it's a pretty simple addition you want to do. I just, like I said, I would have liked to have seen that you had thought about maybe a different location to avoid a variance.
Right. And to be honest, the way we looked at it was that it was going to benefit the neighbor by reducing site visibility from their side into the screened-in porch, which would have still been there if we didn't close it in, and also reduce any sound noise from that structure.
I mean, I think the one nice thing is you don't have a window facing your neighbor, which is good.
Exactly. Right. And that was done on purpose.
You don't want to wave to them.
We see them enough as it is.
So as far as like roof runoff and everything, you plan on I noticed everything pitches to the front. I guess your leaders are not going to face your neighbor. They're going to face.
Right. There's existing gutters and leaders on there. So, as part of this, we want to redirect it to the appropriate areas as needed.
Okay. I mean, I don't have any other issues. Thank you.
To Joe's question on foundation, you're not planning on putting a new foundation and you're not.
Yeah, I don't believe that was called
basement.
for in the plans.
It's essentially just going to build on the existing foundation.
Right.
And close it in. That's the way I understand it, but I just want to hear that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, it wasn't clear. Yeah, so it's the slab there. So we don't have any plans to build a new foundation in that area.
I mean, structurally, Mike, if it's just a slab on grade, structurally, can that handle an addition?
I wouldn't be the one to tell you. That would be evaluated by their architect and the building department as well.
Okay.
Good question. Other board members? Okay, nothing. I'll open it up to the public. Any members of the public wish to comment or ask questions about this proposed variance relief request? Anybody here in the room physically? Not seeing anyone raising their hands. How about on the call? Anybody from the call? You need to unmute yourself and raise questions. Okay, not seeing anybody raising their hands or unmuting. Going once, going twice. I'll bring it back to the board, close out the public comments. Okay, which is a good thing that there's no adverse comments. Sometimes we get supporting comments, which is a good thing as well. Okay. Okay, I guess we can move towards approval.
Yeah, pre-existing non-conforming would be, some sort of hardship, since it already is that way. And, I think it would stand a motion for approval. Conditions laid out by Mr. Breland in his engineering report, and those conditions that have been consented to by the applicant this evening with regard to the drainage.
So this is a C1 or a C2 or both? Yeah, so basically only because it's a non-conforming use right now. There's no unique characteristics of the property, so you can't lean on that one. So essentially, it's just the existing non-conforming use and converting it from a porch to a permanent.
It's a little non-centered on the property, but
Yeah.
not
Yeah,
anything
it's
significant, really. Yeah, it's pretty much a square lot.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody like to make a motion to approve of the application as presented?
I'll make the motion.
Stipulations.
Oh, you want to do it?
So move, Sirico.
Okay, do we have a second on the motion?
I'll second the motion, but I want to add one condition about the lighting that the applicant, why they would not impose any lighting towards his neighbors along with the drainage and the runoff.
Yeah, that's agreed.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. We have a discussion on the motion. Anybody on? Nope. Not seeing any further discussion, so we'll move to a vote, please.
Secretary Delavatio,
Yes.
Board Member Davis,
Yes.
Board Member Kistner,
Yes.
Board Member Lovasolo,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Sirico,
Yes.
Chairman Quinn,
Yes.
alternate Yakarino,
Yes.
alternate Forbes.
Yes.
Okay, motion is approved. Now, there is a caveat. Chris, will you state the
So
caveat?
The application is approved this evening, but the resolution of approval will not be drafted and approved by the board until the next meeting. So that will be voted upon and approved at the next meeting. When we meet. While you can go and apply for a building permit and do whatever you need to do, I don't think a building permit will be issued until the resolution of approval is formally granted at that time.
Okay.
So don't go do a lot of work yet. Essentially, is the caveat. But congratulations, you're set to go.
Great.
This is the Patterson's old house, right?
That is correct. Yeah.
Bob and Eileen were a wonderful couple, so I wish you many years of happiness in your new
Thank you so
home.
much. We're loving the neighborhood so far, so thank you.
Was that Bob Patterson's?
Yep.
I didn't realize it.
Yeah.
Table you're actually sitting
Who's table?
Yeah.
Thank you again.
Okay, good luck. Good to see you again, Chris. Okay, so that's approved. We have another item on the agenda. Final application on the agenda is Land Use Board 2021-08, Elaine and Francis DiMiola, 221 East Allendale Ave, Block 702, Lot 3. And this is a rebuild and expanded deck with a portion to be screened, and there's a front yard and side yard setback issue. or variance request. I'd ask the applicant to come forward, take seats at the table. Before we swear you in, has all the paperwork been
Yes.
properly completed and we can go forward on this?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have reviewed the notices that were sent out and published in the newspaper on July 3rd. The taxes are paid. There were a lot of notices to be sent out, as you know, since you probably had to stamp all those envelopes and send them out because it is close to the Rio Vista development.
Oh, that's
over
right.
there.
Okay.
So, but those are in order and all of the cards have been sent. And so the application is ready to proceed. It is legally sufficient. And therefore, we can hear the application tonight. Mr. Demola, will you be testifying?
I will, and my wife might also have some comments.
All right, so if you both raise your right hand, you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth through the course of this application?
Yes, we do.
All right, thank you. Mr. Chairman, we're ready to proceed.
Okay.
You saw how we handled the last one, so I think you can probably just take it from there.
Right. We'll ask you for, basically some comments on what you're trying to do and essentially what the issues are and how you propose to deal with those issues.
Well, first of all, I want to thank the board for giving us the opportunity to present the project to you. And I'll say up front that we initially planned not to request a variance. We worked hard to avoid that, but it's unavoidable for the reasons we'll discuss.
Okay.
My wife Elaine and I purchased our home in 1996. For the last 25 years, it served us well, served our family well. Last August 4th, 2020, we had a storm, and a storm destroyed the major portion of our deck and damaged a corner of our home. Okay? So we looked at this as an opportunity to perhaps do something a little bit different to further enjoy our home. I should say that in the summertime, we are up against the celery farm, a lot of mosquitoes. So we thought if we could at least screen in a portion of the new deck that's going to be built, that would be a wonderful thing that we would have. Unfortunately, when the architect prepared the drawings and submitted it to the town, he realized that it would require a variance because, first of all, the existing or pre-existing deck was non-conforming. It already, I guess it encroached about maybe 5 feet into the 40-foot setback requirement. So we tried to reposition this deck in a way, or at least a screened-in portion, in a way that would avoid the variance by moving it further. I guess it would be further west. And there was a problem with that. It was an aesthetic problem for us. Looking out at this picture that we have in the family room, we would be looking at a wall essentially. And we thought that wasn't going to work. So instead, we decided we'd bump out the deck a little bit more, another additional 6 feet, and request a 29-foot variance to accomplish that. And that additional deck expansion would be used to be able to be screened in. And when I say screened in, let me explain that. For the most part, it's going to be screened with a railing. We're looking for as much screening as possible, floor to ceiling. That portion of the deck will not have outside lighting. It will have an inside light with a ceiling fan. There'll be an outlet. It'll be used predominantly for during the warmer months, but in the wintertime, it will not be used because it's not going to be heated. It's not going to be air conditioned.
Okay.
It's just going to be a summer place to go and enjoy ourselves away from the mosquitoes and rain and so on and so forth. So for that reason alone, we're now requesting the variance to go forward with this project.
Okay.
I wanted to add one more thing. It's that where it's a corner issue too, that we have the front and the side. And so the Rio Vista Street is what is alongside our property. But then we also have an issue that the side part of our property dips in at a point. So it doesn't go straight across, it dips, it comes in. And at the point where it dips in the most, that is the exact point that we're looking for our deck. Yeah, so at the very, very end of the deck, I think we actually make the 40 feet. But as you progress like up the street, the deck starts to get into the part that curves. And so now we're,
That's correct.
Certainly uniquely shaped lot.
Yes.
yeah.
Display that.
Yeah, you definitely fall. This is the C1
Yeah.
hardship with a unique piece of property. And the street you talk about running parallel to where your deck is, that's the entrance to Rio Vista.
It is. That's correct.
And the next property is across that street. I know
That's
you
right.
gave some pictures. You did submit pictures, which is very helpful, by the way. So you do give a view of the neighbor, I guess, across the Rio Vista Drive, if you don't know what it's called. But, so that you're quite a distance from them where you're going to be out.
Yeah, plus you got a decent amount of vegetation where you wouldn't be able to see it anyway.
Right.
There's a decent amount of vegetation
Yes.
between you and the neighbor where we can see it.
You know,
It's a little bit different than some of the other. Right next door is developed another residential property.
Right.
You know, it's a driveway going.
Right, yeah, it's not occupied.
It's not.
Right, yes. Okay. And your property goes quite a bit back into, I guess I'm looking at the site plan.
Mhm.
So all of that bounded, was sort of squared off, that's all yours. But
It is.
that's, I guess, leading back to the celery farm, is that what it is?
Just touching the celery farm.
Yeah, okay.
I should also mention that the property, our property is below grade for the most part. If you look at it, you can see it's not at surface level of the street. So in terms of water, I mean, it's going to have gutters, but in terms of water runoff, that's not going to be a problem for anyone other than ourselves.
Right.
So we'll handle that.
Board members have questions?
I was just gonna make a comment. So even if you put the deck back exactly the way it was, you'd still need a variance.
If we put the deck back the way it was non-conforming to begin with, but even if we did put it back, it would eliminate any possibility of putting a screened area.
Yeah, no, you definitely fall into that hardship because, I mean, your lot is so irregular. I mean, you couldn't. And I like the fact that you did give some thought to potential options. I mean, unfortunately, even if you wanted to put it back exactly how it was, you're kind of stuck.
The 64 letters had us thinking.
I had to go through that, so I know it's there. It's a big cost too, $5 a piece or $4 or whatever it came out to be. So I don't have any issues with what you want to do. It's, I appreciate the pictures and, I feel for you. That's tough.
Essentially, it was a tree that came down and took out your.
It took out your house, right? Yes. Yeah.
It took
I
out,
remember.
yeah, it split, it took out, it went all the way across Allendale Avenue also.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Was it an ash tree or not?
It was an oak.
It was an oak.
Chairman, if I've ever reminded the board, that's the same storm that the tree almost fell on me as I moved.
Ah,
It went viral.
that video.
Went with Tic Tac because I was the.
Rock was a top start.
I know what Tic Tac was, but I was the least. New Street, tree almost
Oh
fell on
my
my
gosh,
car.
so many trees fell that storm.
That was what, last summer?
August 20, August of last
Yeah, I was down at the shore and I got a call from my neighbor, said your swing set is no more. It was an ash tree that came down across my yard.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we lost a lot of them. You're right. Okay. All right, any other questions from the board? I'll open it. If not, I'll open it up to the public. Any members of the public wish to be heard on this application? Yeah, I'll go back to Mike in a second. Nobody here physically. Anybody on the go-to meeting call would like to raise any questions? Give you a second to unmute. All right, not hearing or seeing any, I'll bring it back to the board, which is again positive in that there's no objection. Okay, that's the way we view it as a board. Mike, any comments from you in terms of your?
I think they answered the questions that I had. And I think they do make a good point that, these topography there leads itself to the drainage on their property. I anticipate this will
All right.
be issues. Again, in section 4.3, we outline, you know, potential other approvals that they may need should the board grant.
Okay. And you're willing to get all those other approvals?
Yes, the soil removal itself, I believe, I read that in the report, the engineer's report. We're not going to have any soil removed. The soil is going to remain in place. Any soil removed because of footing will just remain on the property.
Right.
You know, based on their proposal, it appeared that they were below the 50-yard threshold. Just make the comment that if you're over that threshold.
Oh, yeah, if you're gonna move.
I don't anticipate.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah. And the footings depicted in the photographs, those are the ones from the existing deck, eh?
No, actually, because we thought we were within zoning, we had pulled the trigger early. I had my developer start the work in anticipation that the architect was correct. And we found out that he was not. So
That there was you found out there was an encroachment or that you needed variance.
So lesson learned
Approval.
on jumping the gun.
Okay. Yeah, because they kind of look new to me. That's one of the reasons why I raised the question. Sure. Okay. Would anybody like to make a motion?
I'd be happy to
Approval on
make,
this one?
I'd be happy to make the motion, Mr. Chairman, to approve the application.
I'd be happy to second it.
Yeah, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? We'll move to a vote, please.
Secretary Deluzio,
Yes.
Board Member Davis,
Yes.
Board Member Kistner,
Yes.
Board Member Lovasolo,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Sirico,
Absolutely.
Chairman Quinn,
Yes.
Alternate Yakarino,
Yes.
Alternate Ford.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Your application is approved with, again, the caveat that
The next meeting, we'll prepare a resolution of approval, and that will trigger the time for you to be able to obtain a building permit. But if you want to submit plans or anything before then, certainly.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you all for your support.
Thank you.
Thank
Good luck.
you for your time. And I appreciate your packet. It's very well put
Yeah,
together.
very nice. Linda, thanks for your guidance.
It was
You're
great.
welcome.
Yeah. Does anybody else have matters to bring up?
Mr. Chairman, I just have a matter in connection with the 848 West Crescent Avenue application that we've heard
Yes.
for 2 meetings.
Right.
So I have received a letter from Mr. Olampi. If you recall, this was the property that sought to build 2 houses on the right of way off of 848 West Crescent, block 1501, lot 21. I have received a correspondence from Mr. Olampi dated July 3rd, stating to Mr. Hackett, but copied to me and the planning board secretary, that for our discussion, my client will proceed with construction of a 1-family structure on the single building lot with a pool and accessory structures. Continue the vehicular access through the driveway easement. Dana Place in the Waldwick Borough will serve to constitute the street frontage for the conforming building lot. Accordingly, my client is withdrawing the subdivision application without prejudice and will not be appearing at the July meeting. So that's from Mr. Lampe. They've withdrawn their application without prejudice. But I think that they are going to proceed with construction of a 1-family structure that's conforming over at that property.
Great.
Good.
Good news.
Very good.
Yes. The board is in agreement with that.
Yeah,
that new
that's
plan.
appreciated.
Still a nice improvement too.
Yes.
The architectural drawings, the dead trees, so it's a welcome news.
Okay. I'll open it up to the public. Any members of the public wish to be heard on any matters? I see someone's hand up. Would you identify yourself, please, for the record?
Sure. I'm Deborah Lyon. I live at 81 Park Avenue. This is kind of a little post-mortem comment in a large way on how the Park and Ivy process was handled. First of all, there were significant changes proposed without possibility of public comment before you voted. So I just want to put that out there. I mean, it was kind of a freewheeling meeting the last time they approached you. Second of all, I think that there were supposed to be other witnesses that were carried that we never saw because it was just Bruce Whitaker today. Third of all, okay, thank you very much for acknowledging that. I think that it's important when you have an open meeting that you identify what the quorum is, because we had 2 alternates voting today because the regular members were not here. And fourth of all, we had Ron Kistner as an identified attendee, and he did not appear anywhere electronically to me. So that to me is troubling, because it would seem that we can't verify.
Be here in person.
Well, our meeting is on.
Right.
Okay, so I'm just saying, these are things going forward. If you're going to continue with electronic meetings, you might need to think about.
Okay.
And thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. I think there is good news. I believe we're going back to solely in-person meeting starting in August.
I'll be there.
And the other thing, Debbie, I just want to point out is if you don't see someone on your screen or their name doesn't come up, that doesn't mean that they're not at the meeting, because we're all sitting here and not everyone has their camera on.
I understand that, but as a member of the committee, I think that they have a responsibility to have a presence and a photo presence, so that people can realize that they are there in attendance.
Well, the roll call, ma'am, was mentioned.
I understand that the roll call was mentioned, but he was never present in any of the. I think that if you have a roll call and you have a committee, the committee members should be present photographically if you're going to have this kind of meeting, so that people can see that they're there. He was never a part of this meeting.
Well, he's a part of it. He wasn't busy. Okay.
Right. He
So it's
wasn't.
for the borough council to install cameras in the chambers, because there are no cameras.
Well, I understand that, but he didn't sign on to your meeting as an individual.
He's here in person.
Yes.
Didn't
He-
appear.
He's here during the
He
roll.
verbally signed in. He did.
But yeah, okay, he verbally signed in, but you're having
He's sworn into the record.
virtual meeting, so people should be able to see him as a presence as a committee member.
Thank you, Mr. Lyon. The meeting was held in conformance with the law as it applies in state of New Jersey as of today.
Okay, well, you know what? That just seems really silly to me, that he doesn't want to have his picture on the meeting as it progresses.
Okay.
Okay?
If that's your opinion, that's fine. Okay, thank you for your comments. Any other members of the public want to comment on the land use board process or matters? Okay, seeing and hearing none. Councilman Sasso isn't here, so we won't get an update on the land use committee.
The land use committee's meeting tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Do you want me to come into camera so people know I'm here?
Yeah.
Okay, I can come in camera if you need to be. 8 a.m. and I will report you guys at the
Well, or the next meeting, Steve will probably be here and he'll update us, so that's fine. Okay. If there's no other matters, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Sorry, last question. Do we
Go
know
ahead,
of any matters for the August meeting?
I asked Lynn, do we have anything on the agenda? Do you know?
So far, we have a tentative courtesy review for Northern Highlands.
Is it a hockey
And
rink?
possibly one or two other
Tennis
applications.
courts?
I haven't
or-
received
don't
anything
know.
Basketball
yet.
courts?
Okay.
Okay.
I haven't received any applications yet, but we have a few that may be coming.
Okay. And then we have the resolutions from tonight's meeting too.
Right.
So we'll plan to be here for
Yeah, we'll be
the
here.
August meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I think if we are going to all public access meeting, we should, I think we should discuss it and make it like a decision so that so that it's clear now.
Okay.
If you're gonna have the public here, then the public will be here.
So we should
therefore
talk
we
about
should
that
be-
tonight and.
I think
that?
so. I mean, I don't know.
And I got that information from.
Council has moved to.
Yeah, the mayor
public,
and
right?
council moving to public meetings as of August. So
Okay,
I believe we should do the same.
I think you're right.
So can I make a motion that we move to in-person public meetings? Is
I
that
think it's
appropriate?
anything we do is subject to kind of the building facility management of the borough.
As of now, that is the hope is.
The plan, right.
yes, that
So
is-
that would be our plan as well,
Yes.
to move to just solely public meetings commencing in August. So somebody can make that motion. That would be good, I think.
Wait 1 second, we're gonna do a formal vote on this?
Yeah.
I'll make that motion that we'll conform with the borough and the state requirements and move to in-person if appropriate.
I will second the motion.
Okay, discussion on the motion? If not, we'll vote.
Secretary Delawitzio,
Yes.
Board Member Davis,
Yes.
Board Member Kistner,
Yes.
Board Member Lovasolo,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Sirico.
Yes.
Ron's line, with pleasure, as I prefer in-person meetings.
Alternate Yakarino,
Yes.
alternate Ford.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. That passes, so barring any other changes from the state, now we'll move to just in-person meeting for August.
Excellent.
Okay, guys? All right, motion to adjourn?
I moved.
We have a second?
Sirico. All right, Mr. Kistner has it.
Everyone.
All in favor?
Bye.
Opposed? Opposed? Okay, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming in the middle of the summer.
Thank you all.
Cheers.
Good night.
Bye, Patty.
Guys.
Bye, Patty.
Bye.
Good night, board members.
Bye.